Few shows have captured the heart of British and Irish television quite like Mrs. Brown's Boys. For over a decade, Brendan O'Carroll's outrageous sitcom made millions laugh. With its chaotic energy, family-driven warmth, and unapologetically old-school humor. But behind the laughter, something darker was brewing. Over the years, several beloved cast members quietly walked away, some heartbroken, some angry, and others simply exhausted. From family tension to pay disputes and personal heartbreak, each departure revealed the painful truth behind the laughter. The birth and pressure of a comedy empire. To understand why so many key actors left Mrs. Brown's Boys, you have to go back to where it all began. Long before it became one of the BBC's biggest comedies, Brendan O'Carroll was just a struggling Irish comedian trying to survive. In the early 1990s, he created a stage play about a sharp-tongued Dublin matriarch named Agnes Brown, a character inspired by the women he grew up around. When the actress hired to play Agnes failed to appear for a live show, O'Carroll threw on a wig and a dress and stepped into the role himself. That moment changed his life forever. The show took off like wildfire. Audiences adored its mix of foul-mouthed humor and heartfelt family chaos. Over the years, O'Carroll turned Mrs. Brown's Boys into a stage phenomenon, performing across Ireland and the UK before finally bringing it to television in 2011. The BBC sitcom was unlike anything else on air, breaking the fourth wall, leaving bloopers in, and running on pure, unpredictable energy. Critics called it crude, but viewers didn't care. Millions tuned in, making it a holiday tradition across Britain and Ireland. Behind the laughter, however, was an exhausting reality. O'Carroll wasn't just the star. He was the writer, producer, and creative controller of everything. His wife, Jennifer Gibney, played Kathy. His children, Danny and Fiona O'Carroll, played Dermot and Maria. And even his sister Eilish appeared as Winnie McGugan. The show was built entirely on family, and that closeness gave it warmth, but also tension. The same bonds that made Mrs. Brown's Boys so real would eventually pull it apart. The more successful it became, the heavier the strain on those keeping it alive. By the mid-2000s, what began as a small family show had turned into a full-scale empire. Arena tours, Christmas specials, books, and even a movie. But with fame came pressure. Behind the smiles, several cast members began to feel the cracks forming, creative burnout, personal loss, and unspoken resentment. It was only a matter of time before someone would decide they couldn't do it anymore. Rory Cowan, the first crack in the family. For many fans, Rory Cowan was Mrs. Brown's Boys. His bleach-blonde hair, sharp one-liners, and warm camp energy gave the show its spark. Behind the laughter, he'd been part of Brendan O'Carroll's world for decades, long before television, when the show was still a touring stage act. In fact, Cowan had started as O'Carroll's publicist after losing his job at EMI Records. When an actor suddenly dropped out of a tour, Brendan asked Rory to fill in. He never left. For 26 years, Cowan played the loyal, flamboyant son Rory Brown, and audiences adored him. On stage and screen, he was the perfect counterbalance to Agnes's chaos, always quick with a wink or a biting comeback. But by 2017, something had changed. During the show's sold-out UK arena tour, Rory quietly told Brendan he was done. "I hadn't been happy for the last 18 months to 2 years, he said later. I decided it was time to go. There was no public feud, no explosive argument, just fatigue. The endless touring schedule, rehearsals, and travel had drained him. Worse, he was missing real life. His mother's health was failing, and he couldn't be with her as often as he wanted. Standing on stage in front of thousands while feeling emotionally empty finally broke him. He confided that he'd finished the O2 Arena show, packed his things into a small Waitrose bag, and simply walked away. When news of his exit broke, fans were stunned. Brendan O'Carroll called him a legend, comparing his departure to Ronaldo leaving Manchester United. He said Rory had been a driving force behind the show's success. But to Rory, it wasn't about legacy. It was about peace. After 26 years of constant laughter, he wanted silence. His decision marked the first real fracture in Mrs. Brown's Boys. The show had always sold itself as one big family, but Rory's departure proved that even family can walk away when the joy fades. And though his exit was quiet, it sent a message that echoed through the cast. Behind the laughter, exhaustion was spreading. Gary Hollywood, the pay dispute that shattered the illusion. If Rory Cowan's exit was quiet, Gary Hollywood's was the opposite, loud, public, and painful. For nearly 2 decades, Hollywood had been part of the Mrs. Brown's Boys family, playing Dino Doyle, the sharp-tongued, stylish hairdresser and partner of Rory Brown. Together, Dino and Rory became one of the show's most beloved duos. Their chemistry was effortless, their banter hilarious, and their presence broke barriers by portraying a same-sex couple on mainstream British television with humor and warmth. But in 2020, everything changed. Behind the scenes, a pay dispute erupted that exposed deep cracks in the supposedly one big family image. According to reports published by the Irish Post and the Daily Star, both Gary Hollywood and Damian McKiernan, who had replaced Rory Cowan as Rory Brown, discovered they were being paid less than other core cast members, including Brendan O'Carroll and Jennifer Gibney. When Hollywood raised the issue, expecting it to be resolved quietly, it did not go down well. Sources claimed that after voicing his concerns, Gary was informed his role in that year's Christmas specials would be reduced to just 1 episode. For an actor who had been part of the show for decades, it felt like a slap in the face. That was the last straw, a source told the press. Gary quit shortly after, feeling blindsided and deeply hurt. The fallout was immediate. The 2020 Christmas and New Year specials were filmed without him, or Damian McKiernan, who was reportedly written out around the same time. Fans tuning in were confused to see Dino and Rory simply gone, without explanation. It wasn't just a casting change, it was a loss of heart. Dino had brought a charm and wit that balanced the chaos around Agnes Brown. Without him, something vital felt missing. In the months that followed, reports emerged that Gary had taken legal action against the production company, citing unfair dismissal and pay discrimination. Brendan O'Carroll denied any wrongdoing, calling it a misunderstanding. But by then, the damage was done. The show's family image had cracked in public view. For Gary Hollywood, the pain was personal. He had helped build Mrs. Brown's Boys from its early-stage roots. Yet, after years of loyalty, he walked away feeling disrespected. The laughter that once bonded the cast now echoed hollow, replaced by silence, bitterness, and the reminder that even comedy's biggest family could fall apart over money. Fiona O'Carroll, When Family Isn't Enough. If Gary Hollywood's departure revealed the business cracks in Mrs. Brown's Boys, Fiona O'Carroll's exit exposed something even deeper, the emotional toll of living inside your father's creation. Fiona wasn't just another actor on the show. She was Brendan O'Carroll's real-life daughter and one of the original pillars of the Mrs. Brown universe. She had grown up with the character of Agnes Brown long before television cameras arrived, performing in the early 1990s stage versions, rehearsing lines in family kitchens, and traveling across Ireland with a small, scrappy theater troupe. To her, Mrs. Brown's Boys wasn't just a job, it was home. Fiona played Maria Brown, Dermot's wife, and Agnes's soft-spoken daughter-in-law, a character who anchored the chaos around her. While the rest of the cast leaned into slapstick and over-the-top humor, Maria brought a calm, human touch. She was the every woman, the character that audiences could actually relate to. But by 2022, Fiona had reached a breaking point. She announced she would not be joining the live stage tour, shocking fans who had assumed she'd always be there. In interviews, Fiona explained her decision with honesty and calm. "I felt like I was living someone else's story," she said. "I needed to write my own." After years of performing the same role, she realized she was no longer growing. The show that once felt like family had become a cage, comfortable but confining. Her personal life had also added to the strain. Fiona's marriage to Martin Delaney, who played her on-screen husband Dermot, had ended in divorce. Yet the two continued working side by side, playing a loving couple even as their real relationship fell apart. The emotional weight of that contradiction slowly became unbearable. Every performance was a reminder of what had been lost, and what she needed to let go of. Despite fan speculation, Fiona made it clear that there was no falling out with her father. Brendan publicly supported her decision, saying, "She's my daughter first, not just Maria. I admire her for knowing what she needs, but her absence left a hole that couldn't be filled." Maria Brown had always been the steady presence that grounded the chaos, and without her, the show felt just a little louder and a little less real. Fiona's departure marked another turning point for Mrs. Brown's Boys. What began as a family project built on loyalty and laughter was now shedding members one by one. And though she left quietly, her decision symbolized something profound, that sometimes, even in comedy, love means knowing when to walk away. Martin Delaney, Love, Loss, and the Price of Professionalism. For years, Martin Delaney was the comic heart of Mrs. Brown's Boys. As Dermot Brown, Agnes's bumbling, well-meaning son, he was constantly caught in ridiculous situations, dressing in costumes, scheming with Buster, or struggling to impress his wife, Maria. Behind his awkward charm, though, was a performer deeply woven into the show's DNA. Like many others in the cast, Martin wasn't just a colleague, he was family. Off-screen, he was married to Fiona O'Carroll, Brendan's daughter, and his on-screen wife. Their real-life marriage gave the show a natural chemistry that audiences loved. Every argument, every tender glance, every chaotic family moment felt real because it was. The love that bound Dermot and Maria mirrored the love that once bound Martin and Fiona. But life has a way of changing even the happiest scripts. When their marriage ended, the effects rippled far beyond their personal lives. Suddenly, every scene they filmed together became an exercise in restraint, pretending to be a couple while navigating the emotional wreckage of divorce. It wasn't gossip or scandal that pushed them apart. It was time, fatigue, and the impossible balance between family and fame. Yet both stayed on the show, determined to remain professional and loyal to Brendan's vision. That professionalism came at a price. The tours continued, the cameras rolled, and the smiles stayed on. But for Martin, the show no longer felt like a home. Each live performance meant reliving an old chapter of his life, one he had already closed off stage. Friends later said he had grown distant and quiet, exhausted by the emotional juggling act. By the early 2020s, Martin made the difficult choice to step back. His exit wasn't announced with fanfare or controversy. It simply happened. A slow fading out of scenes, fewer appearances, and then silence. For Brendan, it was another personal blow. Losing Martin meant losing both a son-in-law and one of the show's longest-serving actors. Martin's departure was a reminder that behind every joke and blooper, Mrs. Brown's Boys was held together by real people. People who hurt, loved, and sometimes had to choose peace over performance. His decision to leave wasn't about money or fame. It was about reclaiming his life. And though his exit went largely unnoticed by the tabloids, it symbolized the quiet heartbreak that had been building behind the laughter all along. Damian McKiernan, The Silent Goodbye. When Rory Cowan left Mrs. Brown's Boys in 2017, Brendan O'Carroll faced an almost impossible task, replacing one of the show's most recognizable characters. After all, Cowan's version of Rory Brown wasn't just another cast member, he was an icon. Stepping into those shoes required courage. That responsibility fell to Damian McKiernan, a former Mr. Ireland with limited acting experience but plenty of charm. From the start, the pressure was enormous. Fans compared every gesture, every line delivery, every facial expression to Cowan's version. Damian's Rory was different, quieter, more grounded, and less flamboyant. Some viewers accepted the change, others never did. It was a thankless position. No matter what he did, he couldn't fully escape the shadow of his predecessor. Still, Damian handled it with professionalism and respect. He showed up, did the work, and slowly carved out his own space in the Brown family. But behind the scenes, trouble was already brewing. In late 2020, the same year Gary Hollywood's pay dispute made headlines, reports began to surface that Damian had also been affected. Both actors had allegedly discovered they were being paid less than other long-serving cast members for the Christmas specials, the very episodes that defined the show's legacy. According to the Irish Post, when they raised concerns, things quickly soured. Gary quit, and Damian was reportedly written out. There was no farewell episode, no final bow, just silence. For fans, the disappearance of Rory Brown was confusing and painful. The show had always celebrated family and forgiveness, yet two of its central figures were gone without explanation. Brendan O'Carroll later dismissed the issue as a misunderstanding, insisting there was no discrimination. But public trust had already eroded. The behind-the-scenes tension, once whispered, was now part of the show's story. Damian McKiernan never publicly attacked anyone involved. He walked away quietly, carrying himself with dignity even as his absence spoke volumes. His departure completed a pattern that had begun years earlier. Talented actors leaving not because they stopped loving the show, but because the environment had stopped loving them back. By the time the dust settled, Mrs. Brown's Boys was still standing, still airing Christmas specials, still pulling loyal audiences. But something had changed. The laughter was there, yet the warmth wasn't the same. The cast that once felt like family had become fractured, proof that even the biggest comedies can carry private tragedies behind the punchlines. In the end, Mrs. Brown's Boys became more than a sitcom. It was a family built on laughter, loyalty, and years of shared history. But as the years passed, that same closeness became its biggest burden. Some left for peace, some for fairness, and some because they'd simply given everything they had. What remained was a reminder that even the funniest families can break when the spotlight fades. Which departure surprised you the most? Rory Cowan, Gary Hollywood, Fiona O'Carroll, Martin Delaney, or Damian McKiernan? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more behind-the-scenes stories from the shows you thought you knew.